Hello, I'm going to read a story named Lewis and Clark, A Prairie Dog for the President. 책이 지저분하죠? Let's start. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson was the President of the United States. 네, 토마스 제퍼슨은 미국의 3대 대통령입니다. 꿀팁, 역사 꿀팁. The country was still new. It was also very big. It was so big no one had ever explored it all. 얼마나 나라가 큰지 아직 그 전체를 탐구한 사람이 없대요. President Jefferson wondered how long it would take to reach the Pacific Ocean. He wondered what the land was like along the way. 네, 서쪽부터 먼저 이 점령을 했기 때문에 대서양 쪽은 알지만 동쪽이군요. 서쪽으로 가면 패시픽 오션, 태평양이 있어요. 그래서 서쪽으로 가면 어떤 땅이 나오는지를 궁금해했대요. The president wrote to his friend Meriwether Lewis. Lewis was a soldier. He wanted to be an explorer. Lewis's buddy William Clark wanted to be an explorer too. Lewis and Clark went to see the president. I need someone to explore the West, said the president. We will do it, said Lewis and Clark. The president told Lewis and Clark to make maps and explore rivers. He told them to collect plants and draw wild animals. Most important, he told them to send presents. Lewis and Clark needed helpers for their journey. They took soldiers, scouts, and boatsmen. Lewis even took his dog. It was a long trip. One of the scouts brought his wife, Sacagawea. 네, Sacagawea. 네, 이렇게 모르는 단어를 영어로는 읽을 수가 없어요. 왜냐하면 영어는 모르는 단어를 읽을 수 있는 글자가 아니에요. 그래서 파닉스를 끝냈는데 난 단어를 왜 이렇게 못 읽지? 라고 좌절하지 마세요. 영어는 이렇게 발음대로 읽는 규칙이 아니기 때문에 심지어 지금 여기 발음이 Sacagawea라고 나와 있지만 미국 영어에서는 또 Sacagawea라고 읽어요. 이거는 영국 책이라 Sacagawea라고 읽죠. 아무튼 제가 그럼 계속 Sacagawea라고 읽겠지만 미국 영어에서는 Sacagawea라고 읽어요. Sacagawea was a big help. She picked nuts and berries. She cooked meat and stew. She talked and traded with the Indians they met on the way. Out west, Lewis and Clark made maps. They explored rivers. They collected plants. They saw animals they had never seen before. They saw buffalo. They saw grizzly bears. They saw jackrabbits with long ears. They drew pictures of the animals. 그림 실력도 좋아야겠네요. They tried to catch some of the animals to send to the president, but the buffalo were too big. The grizzly bears were too dangerous. The jackrabbits were too fast. The president will think we've forgotten him, they worried. 대통령께 보낼 선물을 고를 수가 없어요. One day, Lewis and Clark came to a prairie. The ground was filled with holes. A little animal sat by each hole. What are those? asked Lewis. 네, 구멍이 나 있는데 구멍 옆에 다 조그만 동물들이 있는 거예요. Just then a hawk flew overhead. The little animals barked. Then they dived into their holes. Let's catch one of those rascals, Clark said. They are small enough to send to the president. The soldiers took shovels and picks. They dug and dug, but the little animals were too fast. 계속 땅을 파도 너무 빨리 숨어버려요. Let's flood them out, Lewis said. The men carried water from the river. 물을 넣네요. Lewis poured the water into the hole. Clark and the soldiers waited beside the other holes. 귀여워, 여기 보세요. They waited and waited and waited. Then one of the animals popped up. I've got it, said Clark. Clark put the animal in a cage. I wonder what it is, he said. Lewis laughed. It is a wet rodent. You can call it a ground rat. 땅쥐라고 부를까? 이름이 없으니까. No, said Clark. It looks like a squirrel. I'll call it a barking squirrel. 콩콩 짖으니까 짖는 다람쥐라고 합시다. Squirrels don't bark, said a soldier. Dogs bark. We should call it a prairie dog. That's it. 그래서 이름이 prairie dog이 됐다는 Lewis and Clark agreed. Lewis and Clark picked a scout to take the prairie dog to the president. Clark also gave the scout some birds to take. They were called magpies. 네, 까치예요. Lewis gave the scout a letter for the president. He gave him plants that he had collected. The soldiers gave him buffalo skins and deer horns. Have a nice trip, said Lewis and Clark. The scout and the animals rowed a barge down the river. They boarded a big ship in New Orleans. The ship sailed around Florida, then it sailed north to Baltimore, Maryland. Finally, the ship landed in Baltimore. The scout put the animals and the other presents into the back of a wagon. He paid the driver to take everything to President Jefferson in Washington, D.C. The president met the wagon at the White House. He picked up the prairie dog's cage. Is this a gopher? He asked. No, said the driver. I think it is a woodchuck. President Jefferson read a letter from Lewis. A soldier named this creature a prairie dog. It lives on the western prairie and barks like a dog. The president gave the prairie dog a piece of apple. Chomp! The prairie dog gobbled it right up. The president laughed. Americans will want to see this little fellow, he said. I will send these fine presents to Mr. Peel's museum. Mr. Peel's museum was in Philadelphia. The prairie dog and the other gifts rode in a stagecoach to the museum. It was a very bumpy ride. Mr. Peel loved the presents. He sent President Jefferson a thank you note. The prairie dog is a pleasing little animal. He is not at all dangerous like a groundhog, he wrote. Mr. Peel put the cage in a sunny room. Children came to see the prairie dog. Artists came to draw its picture. The visitors touched the buffalo skins and the deer horns. They stared at the magpies. The American West must be a wonderful place, they said. 이때 까치나 buffalo 이런 prairie dog 같은 것들이 아주 생소한 동물들인 거죠. The West was wonderful. Lewis and Clark were gone for 2 years exploring it. In November of 1805, they finally reached the Pacific Ocean. They were heroes. 드디어 태평양에 도착했습니다. If you travel west today, you can still see some of the sights Lewis and Clark saw. You can see grizzly bears and buffalo. You can see jackrabbits and magpies. And if you are lucky, you might even see a prairie dog. Bye!